Thank you for staying with us. We have three conversations we'll be looking at today. The first one, Nigeria proposes new one-time bank tax. And the second being IMF downgrades Nigeria's growth forecast. And the last one is about UAE denying that particular website where Nigerians were told to go make some payments and all of those things. These are the conversations for today. And joining me, I have Collins Okeke, financial analyst. Thank you, Collins Okeke, for joining me today.
Sure. Good morning, everyone watching.
Right. I also have with me Oladipo Ajayi, head fixed income and Forex, Chapel Hill, Denham. Thank you, Oladipo Ajayi, for joining me today.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much for having me on.
Okay, so let's start with you, Collins. What was your initial reaction when you saw that the president had proposed an additional 6.2 trillion naira increase in the 2024 budget?
I wasn't surprised. If you are a Nigerian today, you will know that the country has become a free-for-all, really. When I saw that particular budget, this would be like the fourth or the fifth one, where there have been, different challenge, budgets coming out. But it's cemented two suspicions that I have. The first one being that it is very, very possible, we all understand, we all know, even if it is not said, that the president has health challenges and may not really scrutinize documents that are presented to him. So I fear, personally, that perhaps a cabal has taken over and give the president things to sign that is then sent to a legislature.
But I believe that's something too witty to say, especially when you do not have proof in anywhere. I mean, I want us to just stay on dissecting this, what we can see.
Like I said, it's personal, because if you are passing a budget when you have passed a previous budget, and the amount you are passing, it raises the question that if you have a recurrent expenditure of 3 trillion that you are putting in a new budget to be passed, how was it missed? That is the question. So I am just saying, like I said, I am not saying that is the truth. I said it is a personal thought. When I saw those things, I am not, against anybody. Anybody can come and,
all right, so based on the other thing you said, what's more concerning to you, the breakdown or the use to which this money will be put? An additional 3 trillion naira for recurrent expenditure or the request for a one-time tax on banks' Forex windfall? Which of them, is more concerning to you?
Really, both of them. We know that Nigerian banks are not keen on absorbing cost. And we know that if you tax them, obviously, they are going to try and find ways to pass that, to their clients, which is the lesser man. So what we would see if such a thing happens is that there will possibly be, increased interest rates on loans and charges. And obviously they would, come up with fantastic ways to ensure that whatever is taxed from them, is, taxed up to the next person, which is the common man. Additionally, it is interesting because if you look at the breakdown of previous budgets, when 1.7 for statutory transfer, the other 8 trillion for a recurrent expenditure, basically adding another 3 trillion. If you add all the expenditure, it gets about 20 trillion, and capital expenditure is about 11 to 2. We have a 2-to-1 of spending versus recurrent expenditure versus capital expenditure. This is a problem because what it shows is that we have a spending problem, and we need to, look at this, critically well before we find ourselves, if we're not already there, in dire straits where future generations will be unable to pay back some of this expenditure that we are spending today. So what this means is that going forward in an already harsh economic situation and condition, tasking banks, is the banks. Moreover, if we look at it, critically, this particular fund is not, give or take. It's not really actual money with the banks. What has been done by the banks is what is called asset reevaluation. So if, let's say, you buy an asset in the UK, maybe FX at when, Naira was 1.5, and today it's at, say, 2,000, obviously in your books, you are going to say that you have a gain of 500 based on what you spent. So it's not that is actual cash. You are just, reevaluating based on accounting procedures that you have.
Okay, I like Oladipo to come in here. Thank you so much. For the thoughts you've sort of made so far. Oladipo, I'd like us to take a look at the technicality here. How realistic is the president's request to raise 6 trillion naira from banks' Forex gain? Is the 6 trillion naira going to be raised from banks Forex gain, which I do not think is even up to 6 trillion naira when you add up everything from 2023 financial result? And then hasn't it been already taxed one way or the other?
Okay, let me start firstly from the budget itself. And for me, I'm actually not surprised. And one of the reasons why I was not surprised is that I was expecting a supplementary budget. And my view is premised on the fact that currently the president has no choice as we speak. He has to increase minimum wage. And at the beginning of the year, when they were drawing up the budget, don't forget that the budget has been approved since the year 2023. And as at that time, that was not fully factored into. And even if it was factored into, you can see that the government is trying to go back and forth with the labor union around the level of increase. Even with 100% increase, laborers are still saying, no, that is not enough increase for them. So it tells you that whatever they budgeted on recurrent expenditure will not be enough to actually meet the obligation. And don't also forget that you cannot spend what has not been appropriated for. So I was already waiting for the president to actually go back to the house around increasing recurrent expenditure. So when they actually saw that, I was not actually surprised. And
Oladipo, let me ask you, I'm just curious here. Don't you think we should have, probably cemented the whole conversation around the new minimum wage before going back? What if there is a need to probably further raise more funds? Was to go back again?
So the issue currently on the table is that I don't know whether you saw last week where the labor union president mentioned that there was a plan to actually remove minimum wage from the exclusive list. So what that simply means is that so if they remove it from exclusive, they will move it to more like a concurrent list. So it means that it cannot be it cannot be a single decision of the federal government to determine what the minimum wage will be. So it simply means that the federal government can pay its minimum wage, and the state can actually go around and pay whatever rate that's actually is okay for them. And so the federal government, you will notice that the federal government on their part, they are ready to pay as much as a level. But it's the state government that is coming around to say, no, we can't pay as much as that. This is our level of revenue generating capacity. So we will not be able to do that. And what the federal government is doing is the aspect of the federal government and not the state government. Don't forget the federal government runs its budget, the state government runs its budget. And going back to the House is to actually go back and say, oh, we need additional amounts to actually cushion the effect of the current expenditure. So I'm actually not surprised I'm afraid with the recurrent expenditure.
Right. I'm afraid we have to take a break now. So when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Of course, we'll pay more attention to the issue at hand. Stay with us. Glad to know you stay with us. And of course, we're talking about the one-time tax on banks' Forex gain. Well, I have Oladipo Ajayi with me and Collins Okeke. Oladipo, before we went on that timeout, you were talking about the minimum wage. And I'm sort of drawn to want to continue that conversation because many people, or a lot of persons, or some analysts have said that they do not want it to be moved to the concurrent list because that would mean that you would have some states where they would pay a certain amount and maybe at the end of the day, you have people wanting to move to other states and all of those things. I mean, the conversation can go on and on. There is a whole lot to that conversation. So let's leave it there. Now, let's focus on this one-time tax. I'm asking, is this double taxation? Because if you talk about this particular Forex gain, I believe that it was mentioned or it's been captured in the company's full-year financials. And, of course, it has gone through the FIRS. I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
So if you check the finance bill, so the way it will be treated is this, and what they're saying, normally, when you prepare your financial, it's sent to the tax authority who will prepare your financial. And by so doing, they will consider the allowable expenses, non-allowable expenses before you arrive at your taxable income. So basically what it means is that, like normally, the exchange gain would have formed part of the taxable income. So it simply means that normally it would have been taxed at a 30% CIT tax. But what the government is now saying is that they are going to strike that out. So it means that when you're computing your taxable income, you will strike the exchange gain out separately so that you will tax that at 50% while you would tax the remaining part of your taxable income at 30%, which is the normal CIT tax. So the end goal is that they are trying to, like just what you said, it's more like a windfall tax, is one-off. And to also corroborate what Colin says, it is a revaluation gain. Of course, what they say that is that it's going to be realized. So it means that the unrealized part of it will not be taxed. So because you can have realized gain, you can have unrealized gain. The aspect that falls within this tax bracket is the one that's been realized. So it simply means that instead of paying a 30% CIT tax on it, you are now paying a 50% tax on it. So there will be a situation whereby there's double tax incident.
All right, let me come in here. When you say there won't be a situation where there will be double tax, does that mean that the one that had already been taxed is excluded? We're starting all over again? Or are we going back to say, okay, this has gone through the 30% CIT, maybe now we need to impute the remaining 20%? We need to understand that. Is it something that's going to happen in the future, or is it about what, the 2023 financial year results?
You see, the way financial is prepared is that when you prepare your financials, and based on your own auditor, you would have done your estimated, and you would have sent that to maybe a central bank for approval. After it has been approved, that will be submitted to the tax authority. And it is after that, the tax authority will compute their tax. After computation of tax, it can be over, you can either pay more tax or pay lower than what you have estimated in your financial. What we have seen in the audited financial is more like an estimated tax. That is not the actual tax that is levied. Exactly, it's based on your own preparation of your financial statement. So there won't be a situation of double tax incident based on what the government has said. What government is saying is that that line item will be taxed separately from the other item on the financial. So it may be what it will mean that even if you are accurate in what you have computed before, what you just do, what the government is just going to slam on banks will now be the incremental aspect of it, which is going to be like additional 20% on what you have actually provided for initially. So basically, it is more like a separate tax lines from the way the previous tax has been actually conducted. For me, I don't think it's actually a good one. Because when you look at what it will mean to foreign investors that are actually looking at our market, what it will mean in terms of inconsistency, in terms of, and also what it will mean in terms of desperation, in terms of generating revenue, I don't think he actually set a good signal to the market.
All right, Oladipo, I would like you to just answer this particular one now before we move to IMF, and of course I will be back to Collins for that. Does this in any way affect banks' recapitalization efforts? I mean, I recall that the CBN had asked them not to spend their Forex gains or share as dividend. And some would also like to know if the Forex gains are part of the bank's retained earnings, which they were not meant to calculate as part of their capital.
Yes, exactly. It's part of the retained earning. It goes through, sometimes you pass it through your OCI, other comprehensive income, or you go through your P&L directly and you eat your retained earning directly. One way or the other, it will be part of your retained earning or it comes under your reserve. And don't forget that these elements are not allowed by the central bank for you to add it as part of your capital. And that's one of the reasons why the central bank said that what forms your capital for this recapitalization exercise is just your own share capital and your share premium. So, and that's exactly, so it means there will not be any impact on the current recapitalization exercise.
Right, thank you so much. Collins, now let's move to our next story. The IMF report attributes the downgrade to sub-Saharan Africa's growth rate. You know, it has a downgraded SSA growth rate as a result of Nigeria's sluggish performance, especially in Q1 2024. Now, I'd like you to talk to us about this. How significant are the economic conditions in other countries within the region? And are there specific factors besides Nigeria that could further dampen or improve the overall growth forecast? That looks like some 3-in-1 question or something like that, but I trust you.
First off, it's good and it's bad. What it tells us is Nigeria is to West Africa what the United States is to North America, or what Germany is to Europe. We do know that our capital flows to the region, helps the economy of the other countries in the region. And of course, we do normally laugh about it, but we say, oh, Benin Republic is like the 37th state of Nigeria because, it is firmly tethered to the country. In terms of what can be done in terms of outlook to do this, it is continuous what Europe has done really, but to change it to our own specific factors. What we see in West Africa is, despite the fact that yes, Nigerian capital flows into other countries, we are still not, there has still been not the political will, I will use that word, to have a fully formed, economic union that makes it a united market, a larger market, such that, there is ease of access to free trade, across not just Nigeria, but, across the border without all the issues of, bureaucratic visas issues. So what can be done is that West African leaders need to have a sit down and determine for themselves the pictorial rhetoric of saying we want to form an Afros or an ECOS, but to start looking deeply into how we can be a united single market that can allow the free ease of access of capital and trade itself. Capital flows it's good at the moment, it flows, but trade is still a very, very challenging thing across border-wise. So what West Africa can do is to have a sit down, think about how to invest in infrastructural development. For the longest period, we have tried, building roads or pipelines across borders, but, capital has been challenging. And in the nearest future, I don't see how, this would work. But a sit down with a mapped out plan among West African leaders regarding a more united, single market framework and, enjoining policies that is not different, in individual countries. Because, like they say, united we stand, divided we fall. And this is exacerbated by, international politics between Anglophone and Francophone countries in the region, which continues to provide friction because the Francophones are afraid of domination by the Anglophones, and the Anglophones obviously do not want to come under the tutelage of France, based on what is being obtainable in the Francophone. So for West Africa to, really go forward, a sit down happens first and a framework mapped out that, helps the region.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Oladipo Ajayi, let's close on this. Let me get your thoughts on this and then we'll just wrap it all up.
Well, I think Colin has said a great one around that. And I also think that implementation of many things that ECOWAS has been working on. I think you don't talk too much. It's better for you to act more than talk too much. And we've had the African Trade Agreement on the table for a long time, where we need to expand the level of trade among African countries. And also, when you now narrow down to ECOWAS, countries within the West African climb also need to actually now copy this and now bring it to a small sub-unit of Africa, where you ensure that trades are actually consummated within the West African countries, and ensure that, just like what Colin said, that the policy directions, where you have more like a uniform policy directions that will actually grow the economy of West African countries' economy. So I think if we can actually tow this route, and what IMF just said was that it was as a result of the level of activity that happened in Q1. So we have Q2, we have Q3 that we are just starting currently, and we also have the final quarter for the year to actually make that turnaround. So if we can actually improve the level of activity among member countries, I think the level of growth will actually be better. And also, like Colin that actually alluded to, when Nigeria actually cleans the whole West African nations will actually cash coal. What's currently happening in our own climate is also a factor that we are actually seeing in West African countries. Currently, we are actually about more like an aggressive monetary policy, which is one way or the other dampening growth. And I think by the time we get more like towards the end of Q3, where we expect the monetary policy guy to actually reduce the level of aggression, I think that will also help in the level of growth that we may likely see in Q4, which will also impact West African countries as well.
Right, Oladipo Ajayi, thank you so much for your thoughts. I'd like to hear it from you when you talk about the MPC, loosening up a bit. I'd like to hear that from you. Thank you so much. Head of Fixed Income and Forex, Chapel Hill, Denham. Thank you for your time.